A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media, and today I am bringing you a video that I've actually wanted to do for quite some time. Now, those of you that know me or those of you that have been following the channel know that I'm a fan of role-playing games, tabletop RPGs. I have been for a very long time, ever since I played my first game of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition. You'll also know that I'm a huge fan of horror. So today I wanted to showcase some of the horror role-playing games that I have collected over the years. Now, even though I have these books, I haven't actually played all of these systems. I am a huge fan of learning rules. I love reading through role-playing game rule books, learning and understanding the core mechanics of them, how character creation works, and that kind of a thing. So I just wanted to showcase a few of them that I've picked up. You might be familiar with some of them you possibly have not even heard of yet. The first one I'm going to talk about is, of course, Call of Cthulhu. The only reason I'm picking this first is because I am in the process of running a Call of Cthulhu campaign that has gone on for over a year with the same characters. My two excellent Plaguelands Media cronies, Ian Van Gammett and Luke Carman, have been playing. Ian has played tabletop RPGs with me in the past. Luke, this was his first experience. Very gifted author, so he got into the role-playing aspect of it very, very quickly. Call of Cthulhu is a percentage-based system. You can set this game in really any time period, from ancient Rome to the future, but it's usually set in the 1920s, around the time of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. This is the 7th edition rule book. We have it, it's beautifully kind of laid out with kind of maps of Arkham and everything you need to know. It's a great system, really easy, very intuitive, and it probably has one of the greatest chase mechanisms ever. That's the 7th edition of it. I also actually have a copy of the 6th edition. You might be wondering, why did you keep 6th edition when you have 7th edition? Because Call of Cthulhu is backwards compatible, meaning that you can use any of their source books from 1st edition onwards, and very easily adapt it to the 7th edition rules. You can see, whereas 7th edition was hardcover, this 6th edition was softcover. It's in black and white, very dense, still a really intuitive system. One of my absolute favorite role-playing games. If you want to learn more about this, please go and look up a YouTuber by the name of Seth Skorkowski, who makes some fantastic videos on Call of Cthulhu and adventures and source books and things like that. Call of Cthulhu, horror role-playing in the worlds of H.P. Lovecraft. Okay. The next system I want to discuss, or the next book I want to talk about, I should say, Alien, the role-playing game. I was very excited when this came out. They've actually, Free League Publishing have actually made a Blade Runner role-playing game. I was planning on backing the Kickstarter, but ended up kind of bowing out. I will pick it up when it becomes available. However, Alien, the role-playing game, is really cool. They have released some source books for it. Colonial Marines source book, which I do own, a few adventures. You can see the way that it's kind of set out is, the layout is very good. With this system, if you're familiar with the Alien films, then you'll know that there is, like, your characters are going to have secrets, and there's going to be one person they trust and one person they don't trust. And it's like you never know who is working for the company and who is working to survive and things like that. It's a pretty good system. I think my favorite part of this is the combat and the fact that you can have a campaign game or a one-off movie game. It gives you like a lot of depth on how to create things, and you can encounter like all types of aliens. They give you the spaceship maps and all that kind of good stuff. This is actually one of the best source books to read. It's a lot of fun to read. You do learn a lot about the alien universe. You learn a lot about not just the films, but it goes into depth of the backstory of everything from Prometheus going forward. Excuse me, I need a drink. Oh, I love me some Jack Daniels. Shameless plug. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Alien movie series. In my opinion, there is no bad Alien film. Okay, let me just clarify that. There are some films that aren't as good as others, with some plot holes and things like that. But I think there is something redeemable in every Alien film. Prometheus, loved it. Alien Covenant, loved it. Alien, of course, the best. Aliens, pretty good. There was some good stuff in Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection too. So I'm not gonna poo-poo these. But the role-playing game, fantastic. Really, really looking forward to getting this one to the table. Next up, the revised edition of Shadow of the Demon Lord. Now, technically, this is a fantasy RPG. However, this is grim fantasy. Like, this is dark. This is about as dark as fantasy gets. What is interesting in this is they don't have the traditional human, elf, dwarf, blah, blah, blah. As races, you can be a human, you can be a changeling, you can be a clockwork. So you're all like mechanical. They do have dwarf, orc. You have professions, but at the beginning of the game, everyone starts at level 0. And it's only after that first adventure that your character starts to take place. So basically, this game is you are people living in a shit fantasy world, and as you're trying to fight back or even just trying to survive, you kind of grow. There's an insanity table. There's afflictions that you get. You choose your paths, and then you basically start out as one of 4. So you go from, so you've got your novice paths. So you'd be a magician, a priest, a rogue, or a warrior. And then from there, you branch out into your expert paths. So you can be like assassin, berserker, druid. And then from expert, you go to your master paths. So there is so much room here for characters to kind of diverge. Unlike other role-playing games where you're just you're leveling up the fighter and you just add more skills. Here, you can just branch out. And I think that's really, like, you can be a gunslinger, hexer, hydromancer. So there's so much room for character customization, which is absolutely fascinating to me. I love when games do that. A ton of spells. Here is the map of the land. Looks shitty. It looks like a shitty map. But some of these nations are really, really just terrible. Like, not terrible as in design badly, just terrible as in terrible places. They have this fantastic running adventure scene where it kind of shows you different types of adventures that you can kind of run. Adventures by level, using the shadow of the demon lord, a whole lot of stuff. And then you've got your bestiary with like really disturbing creatures in it. There are a lot of different source books for this. This is the only book I have from this game, but it's definitely one that I am interested in getting more material for because I really love the system. Especially the character system is one of the best. It's absolutely phenomenal. So, Shadow of the Demon Lord. Look at that picture on the cover. I mean, that is just gorgeous art. Look at that. Okay, next up. Oldie, but a classic. I am, of course, talking about the 5th edition, although you will all know Vampire the Masquerade. Now, this is the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade. I have a lot of the 5th edition source books. I love where they are going with the story. World of Darkness has been near and dear to my heart for the longest time. Those of you that know me knew I had an obsession with Werewolf the Apocalypse and Werewolf the Wild West. I actually played some Werewolf the Wild West, where my players and I insisted on wearing trench coats and eating beef jerky one night. It was an earlier day. I'm not apologizing for that. The 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade is very good. However, I do have one issue with the source book, and that is trying to find the rules in the flavor text. Look at this. This is all flavor text. Where are the rules? Where do the rules start? Flavor text. Flavor text. Flavor text. Yeah, I get it. Concepts. The book design is beautiful. I will give it that. We have the Camarilla, the Anarchs, different clans. Now, those of you that know Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade, will know the clans Bruja, Gangrel, Malkavian. Ian's favorite is coming up, Nosferatu, Toreador, Tremere, Ventru, and the Caitiff. And you'll be going, well, wait. Some of them are missing. Yes, there are some clans missing. However, they have released, which is a free download, of course, PDF source books that fill in the clans or other source books that have other clans in them, like the Assamite and the Followers of Set, and a few others. One that deals with kind of blood magic. Sorry for that little pause there. These books are really good. The latest source book, The Second Inquisition, is a really good read. Basically, in Vampire, you are playing as a vampire of a certain clan. You have your coterie, which are the other players, and you are basically trying to survive. It's a little bit political. It can be a little bit violent. Very dark themes, as most World of Darkness books are. But a really great role-playing game system that focuses on using 10-sided dice primarily. They are releasing a Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition book. World of Darkness has been around for a long time, and there are a lot of different editions to it, but this is just one that I got very interested in when I heard of the 5th edition. I do have, I believe, every source book that has been printed for the new 5th edition. But the downside being you have to get through the flavor text of Vampire, which is a little bit difficult. Now, we can actually look at an older edition of Vampire in Vampire the Dark Ages. Now, I actually picked this book up secondhand because some people over here were planning on running a Vampire the Dark Ages game online, and I expressed an interest in it, and I picked up the rulebook, and then it all fizzled out. But I don't really care because this rulebook is great. I had this back in the day. You can see very dark. And then we have the clans. So you can actually see the different clans here that aren't in the 5th edition, like the Assamite, the Cappadocians, the followers of Set. Then we have Gangrel, Malkavian, Nosferatu, Ravnos. They were like gypsies. Tremere, Zamichi, Ventru. And each clan, of course, has a different kind of bane or weakness. So, like, your clan might only feed off a certain type of human. That kind of a thing. So, Vampire the Dark Ages, really, really great book. Back to the World of Darkness. Changeling the Lost. Now, back in the day, World of Darkness had a number of books that kind of all fit together. You had Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Hunter the Reckoning, Mage the Ascension, Changeling the Dreaming, Wraith the Oblivion, and a few others. I had the source books for Vampire, Werewolf, Hunter, Wraith. I didn't have Mage the Ascension. I didn't have Changeling the Dreaming. There's a couple of others that came out, Mummy and a few others. Demon, the Hunted, or something like that. Anyway, didn't have Changeling the Dreaming because I thought fairies, lame-o. Read up about Changeling the Lost 2nd edition. Holy shit, do I fucking love the lore behind this game. Changeling is basically about people, regular people that have been kidnapped and replaced. So let's say your character was walking home from school through a park and then gets kidnapped and taken into the fairy world, and then they replace you with a doppelganger, and you're in that fairy world for maybe 10 years. And then 10 years later, you manage to escape and you're back in the real world, but you now know things. You know that these evil fairies are out there. You know that there is a doppelganger of you somewhere doing something, living your life. It's so freaking cool. The rulebook itself, one of the best parts of this rulebook is the stories, okay? Like you get these, it happened to me part 1, and you get these stories that are so well written. You have Beast, Darkling, Elemental, Fairest, Ogre, Wizened. You have the different fairy courts. Maybe you were kidnapped by summer fairies. Maybe you were kidnapped by autumn fairies, winter. There is so much lore, so much room for role-playing. It happened to me, and you just get all of these things. And it's still using the World of Darkness system, but this is one of the most interesting backgrounds to a role-playing game that I've ever read. And it's one that has me really kind of excited to one day run this for my players. So, yeah, and you just get these stories of these people that have been kidnapped, and it's just a wonderful addition to the World of Darkness lore. So Changeling, The Lost. Also, the cover, like this is, the words kind of stick out and the fairy sticks out so you can kind of feel it. I really, really enjoyed this book. Really great read. Defiance. Okay, this is a new one. This was a Kickstarter that I actually backed. Because, well, I didn't know the rules system. The world itself of this role-playing game was really interesting to me. I actually forgot I backed this, and it just kind of rocked up one day, which is kind of amusing. But in Defiant, the apocalypse has happened. And mankind is trying to pick up the pieces, and you play demons, devils, or angels, or whatever, who are like aristocrats, and you are just trying to make it, I guess you could say. What strikes me about this book is the art. The art in this is absolutely phenomenal. They did a really good job setting up the world itself, how to kind of play it. It's quite a streamlined, simple system. The way I picture this is Vampire the Masquerade, but with devils and demons and angels and all that kind of stuff after the apocalypse has happened, is the only way to kind of describe it. So what this is a role-play heavy game where there's a lot of like political stuff going on behind the scenes, and you're kind of trying to work your way through this social circle, but at the same time trying to keep what you've made. Like you could be a nightclub owner. Oh, dirty. Things like that. It's a very interesting world, and one that I think has a lot of interesting possibilities for the right group. Now remember that I'm talking about horror role-playing games. So maybe not everyone is going to be into this material, and this is definitely one for a kind of a niche market. Next up, I'm going to talk about the horror books from the Gumshoe system. I've already talked about the Gumshoe system when I reviewed Night's Black Agents a while ago. You can find that video on our Plaguelands Media YouTube channel. The Gumshoe system is basically role-playing heavy, where it's all about finding clues and that kind of thing. The first of these I'm going to talk about is Fear Itself. Fear Itself, the premise just struck me. This is, you're playing horror movies. Like, that's basically it. This is the game you want if your group wants to go, hey, tonight let's play a role-playing game in the style of an 80s horror film. Fear Itself. This is the book. This is quite a nice soft cover. Gives you a ton of abilities and rules to create your characters. Your characters can basically be anything from a horror movie. Any character you can think of that's been in a horror movie, you can make it here. You can do one-shots, you can do campaigns, but the beauty part of this book is it actually gives you quite a lot of scenarios to run. So really, you don't need anything else. You can basically run games, gives you the character sheets for pre-generated characters. It gives you a small campaign, gives you a few one-shots. But this is the game if you want to run horror films as your basic role-playing premise. Really interesting. And there's some really cool ideas in here. which I was very, very impressed with. Next, I'm going to talk about Night's Black Agents Solo Ops. Now, I've already talked about Night's Black Agents. This is basically spies and vampires, if you really want to get down to it. This is people during like the Cold War that realize vampires are real and blah, 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 blah. Solo Ops are a set of pre-generated scenarios where you just need a dungeon master, a games master, and one player, which I thought was very, very cool. What I did not realize, however, is that at the beginning of the book, it gives you all of the rules for Night's Black Agents. So you don't need the original rulebook to use this. If you just want to play one person running the game, one person playing the game, this is the only book you need. Night's Black Agents gives you a few more options, of course, but this already has like the pre-generated character to run through these adventures. You don't have to use her. This was really cool. Like, whoever came up with this idea, I wish more role-playing games had like solo experiences. Most role-playing games are geared towards parties of 4 to 6 players. So this is basically vampire hunting during the war. Really cool premise. Really good book. I do have a problem with the cover itself is not cut kind of properly here, which is a little annoying, but hey, what can you do? Okay, back. Oh, and that uses the gumshoe, same as Fear itself. So same kind of system. Trail of Cthulhu, gumshoe system again. This is basically Call of Cthulhu Light. Really cool book, really cool system. If you're familiar with any gumshoe system, you're going to be familiar with this. Rules light, Call of Cthulhu, focusing primarily on investigation. With that one. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. I've already talked about gumshoe stuff, but Trail of Cthulhu, Hideous Creatures, a Bestiary of the Cthulhu Mythos. This source book is fucking awesome. And I will explain why. Okay. There are a few creatures here that are covered. We have bat things, bowl, black winged ones, Baiki, color out of space, dark young, all the regular Cthulhu stuff. Fair enough. In a typical bestiary, you would have a stat block, a description of the monster, and maybe a picture. Not here. Here, we have bat things, okay? We've got the picture, we've got the stat block. Then we have variations, echoes, and basically different clues that you can include in your game to key the investigators in. For example, if they make their locksmith roll, the lock on the attic door is much sturdier one than would be necessary. So that kind of gives you the hint that they're trying to lock something in. Let's say they wanted to use their bargaining roll to get information. For a few dollars, the trapper will lead you up the mountainside to the cave where he says you can find the bats. So these are just things that the dungeon master or games master or keeper or whatever you want to fucking call them can throw into the game depending on what the characters do. And then you have handouts that you can photocopy to give to the characters. And you have that for every single creature in here. You get clues, stats, handouts, everything. I actually think that this book Bestiary of the Cthulhu Mythos is also useful for anyone running a Call of Cthulhu game as well. But this book is one of the best bestiaries I have ever read. It just is so helpful to any keeper that is running a game like hunting horrors, investigations, bibliography, like where it's found, or if you like it, what you can read up to kind of get more information. Medusas, just a really cool, a really cool source book, one of my favorites. Okay, next, still going. What is this, you say? This is Delta Green. Delta Green, this is the Agent's Handbook, of course. A role-playing game of Lovecraftian horror and conspiracy. This is basically Call of Cthulhu set in modern times, and the players are like law enforcement, government agents, all of that kind of thing. Pretty kind of similar, I guess, in feel to Call of Cthulhu, but just set in modern times. Now, the Delta Green rule books, the handbook, the Agent's Handbook, and the Handler's Guide are really cool. But what sets Delta Green above and beyond for me are the pre-written scenarios. I have quite a few of them, and they are really, really fucking cool. I also have the campaign about the King in Yellow. This is one that I am really looking forward to getting to the table with my role-playing game group. But at the moment, we're having way too much fun with regular Call of Cthulhu. And I think after our Call of Cthulhu campaign winds up, I think we might switch to fantasy, probably Conan Adventures in an Age Undreamed Of, which I'm going to make a whole separate video on with that. Not much else to say about Delta Green, but really, really cool world building, and the pre-written scenarios, which are incredibly cheap. Like, they sell these things for like $11 each, depending on where you shop. I get mine from an American website. They are so cheap. They're not very thick, but they are so well written and just really, really cool. Okay. I'm a huge fan of Clive Barker. I'm a huge fan of Hellraiser. I'm a huge fan of the Books of Blood. I loved the film Lord of Illusions. Even the short story is amazing. I love the fact that if you read the Scarlet Gospels, Clive Barker has kind of introduced the Cenobites to the character of Harry D'Amour, who is an occult detective. In the film Lord of Illusions, he's played by Scott Bakula, who of course was in Quantum Leap and Star Trek Enterprise, and I'm going way off fucking tangent here. Anyway, Hellraiser, one of my favorite books, The Hellbound Heart. I've done a book review of it. The films, well, let's just say Hellraiser is a fucking horror masterpiece, along with Hellraiser 2, Hellraiser 3. The fourth Hellraiser, which was in space, was kind of cool because you got a lot of backstory on the toy maker. They started to deteriorate after that. The comic book series, fucking amazing. I love Hellraiser. That's all I'm fucking saying. Why has there been no Hellraiser role-playing game? Well, this is the closest thing you're going to get. Cult, Divinity Lost. This is the 4th edition of the rules. I also have the 2 hardcover books. One of them is a Cult Divinity Lost campaign, and the other one is a set of pre-written scenarios. This is a really interesting system because if I'm not mistaken, the Dungeon Master in this doesn't actually roll any dice. It's all predicated on whether the players pass or fail whatever checks they are making. Why do I call this Hellraiser the role-playing game? Well, the art, first of all, is phenomenal. You are basically playing in a world of demons and monsters and spirits. You can be the academic, the agent, the artist, the avenger, the broken, the careerist, criminal, cursed, deceiver, descendant, detective, the doll, the drifter, the fixer, the occultist, the prophet, the Ronin, the scientist, the seeker, the veteran, the sleeper, or you can just make up a new kind of archetype. Everyone in this game is broken. All the characters are broken. They have secrets. They have hidden histories. If you're playing some of the store-bought stuff, I mean pre-generated, pre-written, some of the pre-gen characters are some of the most fucked up characters I've ever read in a role-playing game. And you're looking at this and you're going, okay, it just seems like a standard modern-day horror. Fair enough. Well, you know what? Let's skip ahead. Let's skip ahead to some of the creatures or some of the art here. We have the first session. We have, all right, constructing a scenario, beyond the veil. Okay. The flavor text is really cool. Elysium. Seriously? I mean, you can't tell me that doesn't look like a Cenobite right there. Fucking baby heads on skeletal worms. Yeah, I mean, look at this fucking thing. This is... It's a really cool world. It's a really cool system. But I would be very careful about who you would play this game with. I think they went above and beyond with the art in this. I think the art is some of the best art in a role-playing game that I've ever actually seen. But just horrifying. And the pre-generated adventures, released by Modifius, of course. The pre-generated adventures, one of them begins in a prison, and the players actually take the part of prison guards as the warden is trying to do this fucked up thing, and then the adventure jumps, and it's almost like the players have kind of, they've seen what happened, and then when it comes to the future, they're new characters with this kind of understanding. It's a really interesting, really warped way of designing an adventure, and I really, really like it. Some of them are completely messed up. They deal with a lot of adult themes like child abuse and things like that, but a really interesting RPG system. Now, the last one I want to talk about is probably my least favorite, and that is Unknown Armies. There were 3 books that came in this collection, and let me just come here, motherfucker. Okay. Book 1 is basically how to play. Unknown Armies is a game about horrific conspiracies. And your characters are basically people that can kind of pierce this veil, see through this veil. They're all damaged in some way. Now, the system itself is pretty good. I'm not going to kind of poo-poo it. The more you know, the more crazier you kind of get, and things like that. So the system itself is okay. The problem I have with Unknown Armies is the fact that if you want to run a game of this, the way they recommend you do it is you sit down with your players and you all come up with the conspiracy together. And then the games master goes off and works it all out and blah, blah, blah. I don't like running games like that. I like finding out what sort of a game my players want to play and then just throwing them in a world that I've created and letting them discover it for themselves. But if they sit there and they're like, well, I want a game where we think the President of the United States is king of the lizard people. That's what our characters firmly believe. And then I've got to go away and go, okay, how are we going to do the king of the lizard people president storyline? I am grossly kind of glossing over the way that works, but you get the idea. So Unknown Armies, while I love the concept behind it, not one of my favorite role-playing games to kind of run and... Whoops. So that, without going into all of my source books, is my collection, so to speak, of horror-based role-playing games. If you liked this video and you want to see more, I will quite happily do science fiction-based and fantasy-based role-playing games. I might just do it anyway because I just love the sound of my own fucking voice. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope this has given you somewhat of an idea of the sort of shit that I'm into. Please like, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Follow us and all the shit at the end of the video. But most importantly, stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one.